Alright, hey everyone, it's Bo. I've just finished up the new miter saw cart. In my last videos, I talked about moving my planer off of this cart onto a new dedicated rolling cabinet to make room for my miter saw. My miter saw is just a simple DeWalt 713 model, just a 10 inch compound miter saw. It doesn't slide. It's just a fixed saw. What I spent most of my time on was not building the rolling stand, of course, because I already had that, but it was building the fold-out wings, which I'll show you here. So the right side wing is shorter, made out of 3/4 inch MDF. There's two at top and bottom, as well as two pieces of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood running along its length to give it straightness and rigidity in its length. On the left hand side, where I would do most of my cutting, that one is of course is longer. And this, using the 3/4 inch MDF, it's quite heavy. I think if I were to redo it again, I probably wouldn't use 3/4. I'd probably use a 1/2 inch MDF for the tops, for the horizontal surface. The vertical surface requires a 3/4 inch piece of material for the Craig, kind of this Craig track system to work with the swing stops and the aluminum piece that comes with it. The supports are made, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. The supports are just simple triangular pieces. So we can see this triangular piece is half lapped in all the joints, and then there is a continuous butt hinge that supports it. The thing that levels the wing is there's a block of wood on the bottom of the wing, and then there's a bolt and a lock nut to set its height. The tables are then hinged to the work table here, or the rolling cart here, with another continuous hinge. It's the same way on the other side. Support on a block underneath. And then for the dust collection on this, miter saws are notoriously dusty. So what I've done is I have a hood. I think it's called a big gulp hood or something like that. I fastened it to a piece of scrap. I fastened it to a piece of scrap with a bunch of washers and wood screws, and then I've put this on. Both sides have these slots cut into it with there's a threaded insert in the tabletop, and then this can loosen both these up, and then it can slide if you were to want to pivot the saw all the way to the left, which I'll try to do here without moving the camera too much as I trip over stuff in my shop. Okay, so that's off to the left hand side, and as I pivot the saw, it's still directed at that hood. And then when I pivot to the right, of course, I slide to the other side. That's all I have. So enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. So getting into it here, you can see that I had one piece of MDF on the bench top, and then I had three kind of vertical members. Two of them, or all of them, were pocket screwed into what would be the upper fence, or the upper surface of the fence. And then I flipped it over, and now I'm countersinking and drilling for some 1-inch screws to go through the bottom fence into those vertical members. You probably also noticed that some of those vertical members were short and kind of pieced together. I had a bunch of scrap plywood that I was trying to use up here too, so to attach the rear fence, which the Craig track system attaches to, just glue and screws through the back. I did check before I did this that the height was going to be accurate, or was going to be correct, I should say. The Craig system prefers like a 2¼ inch tall fence above the horizontal surface there for their flip stops to work properly. All right, everyone. I took a quick pause here to talk through a couple things that I've done that I didn't capture on camera because my camera was dead. So I think I've captured previously assembling the wings themselves with pocket screws, glue, and then just countersunk screws. What I wasn't able to capture was mount them to the cart itself, and so that's accomplished by using a which is easier to see. Probably need more. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, manual zoom. And so what you can see here is a piano hinge, just a continuous hinge. And these are a little bit thicker than the ones you buy like Home Depot or Lowe's. They're a little bit beefier than the ones I bought for my hanging cabinets. I think they're from Stanley. I got them on Amazon. But anyway, how I did this, how I set these up, is I had a support, like a little tripod support on the end of the wing, and then I'd set this on the table, and then I'd use playing cards or shims essentially to shim it up until it was flush with the top of the miter saw here, and I was using a straight edge across the miter saw to get that set up, and then I would attach the hinge to the cart, and then I would make any adjustments with the to align the fence of the wing to the fence on the miter saw. I only had 2 screws in the hinge into the wing here, so I'd take one out, rotate it a bit, then tighten it back down, then drill and screw the rest of the hinge in. Overall, it wasn't too bad of a process. Went pretty smoothly. Using the playing carts helped a lot, just get it level with the table. So now what I'm working on is I'm going to be working on the supports that flip up and support the table at the wing. I'm going to use this. It's about 1 inch thick after milling, and it's, how wide is this? It's about 1.5 inches wide. So 1.5 inches by 1 inch. I'm just going to make a simple triangular brace. I'm going to use half laps at all the joints to hold it in place. And that'll support the load pretty well too, so it won't let the pieces slide past each other. So yeah, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to start, this stuff's already milled, I just need to cut it to length and then cut the half laps in it pretty quick. And here I am cutting the pieces to length for the supports that will hold up the outboard side of the wings. The supports themselves were, I think, roughly 22 by 22 or 23 by 23. I can't recall. Alright, here I'm just showing, I got the table saw set up for the blade height for half laps. I'm just using a standard blade. It's my 24 tooth rip blade, works pretty good for cutting some joinery. And so here I cut the half laps in the corner, and then I lay the diagonal piece across, and I use a knife to scribe the lines, which I already did. I just was doing it again for camera here. Then I take the support piece over to my miter gauge on the table saw. It's set at 45 degrees, and I'm just working up to my lines, and I'll be checking it off and on to make sure I get it all. Looks still a little wide there, so I'm coming back. Gonna take a little bit more off. And then in order to do the opposite half lap joint on the 45 degree piece, got to flip the miter gauge over, and then work the other end the same way. While the support wing or the supports are drying in the clamps, I moved on to trimming out the MDF. MDF corners and edges really they can get gouged and damaged pretty easy if you bump against them. So I'm applying some edge banding here. It's just it's some more of that oak that I had laying around. I ripped into thin strips, and then here I'm cutting it to length, gluing it on, and then using pin nails to hold it in place. After the supports came out of the clamps, I had to clean up some of the excess material that was on the opposite side of the half lap. You see, using a pole saw to get the majority of the material, and then I have a flush trim saw, a chisel, and a block plane. You can also notice I have a patent pending bandage there. I believe that's a blue shop towel. I caught my knuckle with the pole saw, and a band-aid wasn't staying in place, so Alright, I'm moving on to mounting the supports onto the rolling cart. I start by getting it lined up vertically and horizontally, and then what's out of frame here is a small clamp I put on the bottom of the hinge to hold it in place while I drill the first few holes. And then just drilling, I'm using a centering VIX bit and then some small, I think they're probably small number 6 screws that are going in there. After mounting the support to the cart, I drill a hole for these inserts. They are 1/4 by 20 and 20 millimeters long. I think I drilled a 3/8 inch hole into the support here for it, and then they have internal hex on top of them so you can wind them in. And then I'm using a standard hex bolt with a lock nut to set the height of these. I initially drilled a small countersunk hole in the bottom of the wing to always locate in the same place. What I found out after doing that is that it's by doing that, the bolt actually has to be interfering with the wing as you slide it underneath. So I had to change that later on and add a block on the bottom for that nut to rest, or for that bolt to rest again, so it wasn't dragging on the bottom of the wing the entire time as I swung the support in and out. And here I'm setting it level with the table. I think I'm feeling pretty good at this point, but you'll see coming up I screw up a couple times, so you'll see that in the next set of videos. I had to make a little modification here to allow this to swing past, so the wing would clear this as it came down. So I got that fixed. My other issue is just a dumb move on my part. So this support swings forward and catches the wing. Sorry for the shake there. But it does a good job of catching the wing, right? But if I want to collapse it, it's not going to get past the wing to close it down. So that sucks. So that means I'm going to have to remount this to the front. And the reason I didn't do that in the first place is because I made both these braces the same exact size, and I thought it was going to be too long for this wing. It was going to stick the end of it was going to stick way past the wing, which it probably will. But I think that's about the only way around this right now, is to move the brace to the front, and then redo the hinge and everything. So, yay! So here I've gotten the support brace repositioned. I've given it a light sanding, and then I've just dusted it off with some cloth, and I'm going to apply a coat of polyurethane here. This is Watco polyurethane, wipe-on poly, I think. I didn't thin it, which was a mistake. It was very thick. So the first coat I put on unthinned, and it took a long time to dry, but after the first coat dried, I gave it a really light sand with 400 grit sandpaper, and then came back with some thinned poly and put a second coat on, and that was all the finish I applied to this. And here I'm mounting the Craig track system. Pretty straightforward, just cut to length, drill and screw. Here I'm showing you the block on the bottom that I had to add so it wouldn't drag on the bottom of the fence as I swung them in and out. Instructions are super easy to follow, and here's some finished pictures of the system. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.